Hi there, this is Anup. Today we are going to talk about what does Microsoft Entra and what is Microsoft Entra ID. You know what is Azure Active Directory. Now there is something that Microsoft announced recently that is called Microsoft Entra. And Microsoft introduced new products and features to Microsoft Entra family. And Microsoft Entra is part of Microsoft Security Solutions now. We will see all the details about Microsoft Entra and Entra ID. What is the difference between Azure Active Directory and Microsoft Entra ID? And we will discuss about the solution from Entra for the private and internet access, etc. So don't skip the video. Let's go ahead and check this out. So let's understand what is Entra ID, and then we'll talk about what is the relationship between Microsoft Azure AD and Microsoft Entra ID, and is there any rebranding, whether that rebranding makes sense or not. We'll discuss all these things in this video. So Azure AD is now Entra ID. Azure AD is Entra ID now. What is Entra? Entra is basically an IAM product from Microsoft, and Microsoft renamed or rebranded Azure Active Directory, Azure AD or aka AAD, to Entra ID. From a technical perspective, there's nothing changed. APIs and all the URLs are going to be the same, but it is just the rebranding to align with their IAM product strategy. So Entra ID is part of Microsoft Entra product, and Entra ID is basically an enterprise identity and access management solution. It is a SaaS based solution with lot of hybrid support. As I mentioned before, Entra ID is part of IAM product family named Microsoft Entra. So what are the main features of Entra ID? It provides various features. First thing is, it is an identity provider. You can create an identity using Entra ID for your resources. It provides SSO, single sign-on, MFA, and it also provides conditional access. And it also has features such as self-service, password reset, etc. And this is the official definition of Entra ID. Entra ID centrally manages all your identities and access to your applications, whether they are hosted in the cloud or on-prem. And this also helps to improve the visibility and control of your identities because it is centrally managed, similar to on-prem Active Directory. Let's check how the industry is calling it. What is the category that industry is calling this solution? As per Gartner, access management as a tool that establish, enforce and manage journey time access control to the cloud, modern standards based web and legacy web applications. At least for me, it is very complex to understand this, but ideally it says it is an access management tool, and Entra ID is treated as an identity and access management tool as part of a product called Microsoft Entra. If you look at the Gartner's Magic Quadrant report released on August 22, Microsoft is part of leaders quadrant. Along with Microsoft, Okta is there, and then Ping ID is there. Even CyberArk is part of leaders. IBM is under visionaries, and niche players are there. Oracle, Macro Focus, Challengers, one identity, one login. OAuth is not there because OAuth is part of Okta now. So the fact of the matter is, Entra ID is an enterprise identity and access management solution, and it is a SaaS solution. It is part of a product umbrella called Microsoft Entra. Previously it was called Azure Active Directory or AAD. Entra ID is used in many scenarios like login to admin consoles, Microsoft 365 admin consoles, Intune admin consoles. Entra IDs are also used to provide appropriate permissions, role-based access for Azure VMs and all the other Azure resources as well. So Entra ID is used very widely, but it is basically an identity solution. Each users will have a unique identity for accessing the resources such as file shares, applications, logging into the devices, etc, etc. So this user ID is coming from Microsoft Entra ID. Let's look more into Microsoft Entra as a product. What are the three main categories under Microsoft Entra product? Identity and access management is the first one, and that is what Microsoft Entra ID provides. And there are Microsoft Entra ID governance and Microsoft Entra external ID. All these three are part of identity and access management. The second category over here is new identity categories. Microsoft has recently announced Microsoft Entra Verified IDs, Microsoft Entra Permission Management, Microsoft Entra Workload IDs. So these are the modern identity categories which can be used with modern applications, etc, etc. And the third category of Microsoft Entra product is network access. Mainly there are two kinds of network accesses. One is internet access and the other one is private access. Internet access basically means these are publicly available applications, etc. Private access means these are private applications or websites which is available only for a specific enterprise or group of users. So Microsoft Entra has a solution to have secured network access using these two features: Microsoft Entra Internet Access and Microsoft Entra Private Access. Let's look into Entra ID licensing details. If you are familiar with Azure AD licensing details, this is same for Entra because it is just a rebranding. Entra provides free Entra IDs, and then Microsoft Entra ID P1 license is there, and that is part of Microsoft 365 E3. Some of the features like conditional access, etc. is available only for P1 license and above. Microsoft Entra ID P2 license, that is included in Microsoft 365 E5 license as well. And then there's a license for external identities, that is called Microsoft Entra External ID license. So Microsoft introduced a portal for Entra, and that is entra.microsoft.com, and you can see all the Azure Active Directory related features are available over here. That is Entra ID related features, and then lot of other features which we talked about in the previous slides are also available in entra.microsoft.com. Now that you have seen all the details about Microsoft Entra and Entra ID, what is the difference between Azure Active Directory and Microsoft Entra ID? Both are same. Microsoft did a rebranding to align with probably with the industry standard and their product strategy, because Entra is adding a lot of additional products into its portfolio. So that is why this rebranding makes a lot of sense from my perspective. And even Azure AD is a bit confusing from an identity perspective, and it is not part of the Azure group within Microsoft, even though all the Microsoft ecosystem, SaaS, IaaS, PaaS, all those solutions are based on Entra ID identity solution. Hope this video helped you to understand about Microsoft Entra and Entra ID in detail. Thank you all for watching. See you around.